So this is interesting because Valtryek hits it from the inside, as in below the bay, and yet Rock Devore gets pushed into the middle. Even though later in this episode with Flash Launch, we demonstrate that if you're hit, you go toward the outside. So this is kind of a weird moment. Furthermore, if Rantaro's plan was to dodge the rush launch, why would he eat the rush launch initially? Why wouldn't he just go for a straight up angled launch? Because it doesn't ruin the training exercise, because Volt's new move has a different trajectory to the rush launch, and therefore if he goes for a standard angled launch, he won't ruin the exercise, because Volt could still probably hit him. So I don't know what this is supposed to be.
Impressed? Look at me! I'm totally vibing with my babe!
That being said, this moment from Rantaro is really awesome, and it's cool to set up his development of trying to connect more with his base, since that's something that's built on throughout the season, though not super well, due to the fact that Rantaro is not as pushed as a battling character.
If Valtryek can't get in an early attack, it loses its power pretty fast.
I mean, but it did get in an early attack. What was that rush launch then? A late attack? Again, the way they designed this to show that Volt was just using a regular rush launch makes lines like this make very little sense.
Remember that time I said I wanted a rematch and I was gonna win? Yeah, that's now.
But wait, didn't that already happen in episode 2 when you beat him? I thought that was the rematch. I mean, I know this is just smack talk, so you can excuse it on that front, but it isn't very logical smack talk. This joke gets me every time. It's freaking hilarious. Again, as much as I love to pretend my humor's sophisticated, it really isn't.
So, who's first to line up and get my autograph?
I like this difference between Rantaro's reaction at beating Volt in episode 2 and his reaction at beating him here. Since there it was to demonstrate humility and therefore he didn't really celebrate too much, but since Volt's already learned that lesson, he can kind of show off a bit more, which is nice.
That's what happens when you don't train every day. They don't take Beyblade seriously. It's just a game to them.
I want to reinforce Wakia's perspective on blading here, since we didn't really see his perspective on people thinking it was just a game before, so this is a good way to show it.
Alright, big guy?
So this is cool for setting up the number of siblings that Hoji has, and the fact that he's so practiced in, you know, comforting a little brother kind of talk.
Before, when I did it, I was hit by that basketball from behind!
Not only do I think it's cool that Volt comes to this realization, but I do think it's pretty funny how he's sitting in this almost cat pose. Like, why did they decide to have him do that? I don't know, but it's still pretty funny.
Hey! You lost your mind, Honcho?
Come on. You're the one that practically begged me to hit you with it.
Yeah, but not so hard!
This is a really good argument to build on their characters, and also, it's not like either one of them's really in the wrong, because Rantaro's right that Volt did tell him to hit him with a basketball, but at the same time, the basketball didn't hit him directly, it bounced and then hit his back, so Volt's kind of right for saying that he hit him too hard with it.
Is that any way to talk to someone who's sacrificing his time to help you out?
Also, this is a cool line, not only for showing that Rantaro isn't as committed to Volt as he comes off, but also cool because they actually pay this line off in episode 9.
Think about it. Remember when the ball hit you? It forced you to lean a little too far over.
Like I said, it's cool that of the two observant bladers, both of them picked up something in that scene, and that Daigo picked up the disparity between Volt's regular launch and what becomes the flash launch, and that Shu picked up why Volt used the flash launch, which is really cool for showing both characters' intelligence while also balancing the cast.
So my wrist is the key.
You need to straighten it.
Let's give this a shot!
Also, sick how when these two come to a conclusion, they both kind of just get in the zone and start agreeing, which is, again, good for showing many dynamics of their character in such a short amount of time.
I could have told you it had nothing to do with the ball hitting you. Am I invisible?
I agree with Rantaro in that he could have told Volt, and he is implied to have done so, that the basketball didn't do anything, but it's not like he was the one who suggested it was his wrists. He didn't have any ideas, so he isn't quite able to argue this, but, you know, I get what he's going for, and this is still a good character moment.
That's okay. Just forget about little old me.
Not only is this a really good joke, but Matt absolutely nailed it with this one.
I position myself just like the rush launch, then I make sure my wrist is straight.
Also cool to have Volt so in the zone that he's even able to just straight up come up with a process for this all by himself, which is good for showing a bit of intelligence in the game. I also kind of like Volt's stress and the fact that not only has he been basically messing this technique up and turning it into a rush launch, but in a lot of his flat launches we've seen, he would mess it up, and he'd been messing up the rush launch in episode 5, so it's really nice how he's not like super confident he's going to get it right. Shows that he's got quite a bit of humility and a bit more stress in himself after all his failures. And this is not only a great way of showing Volt's success, but man oh man is this delivery incredible.
When your opponent tries to take the middle, you can use that speed of yours to knock them to the edge.
Cool how Shu immediately works out the practical implications of Volt's new technique, since he is the highest rated blader of them, so it makes sense that he'd be more into the practical applications of moves, whereas, say, Daigo or Ken would be less so, despite potentially being able to work this out.
What should we call it, Valtryek? Yes! Great idea!
Also, something cooler I noticed about Volt's first 4 moves is that 2 of them he names himself, and 2 of them he asks Valtryek for the name, which is a good way of balancing his own naming convention with his bond with his bae.
Earth the Bald here. Please tell me you weren't actually talking to your bae just now.
Rantaro, were you not talking to Rocktavor like 5 minutes ago, my man? Again, this is pretty dumb considering it wasn't even a previous episode, it was literally this one. But this joke is not bad, but I definitely think it would have worked better if they just never had Rantaro talk to Rocktavor.
Why would we do that?
Just gonna go ahead and ignore that.
Also, again, this episode has a lot of my favorite comedy. I really love and remember this joke.
Nice, I like it.
Except it sounds a lot like Rush Launch.
Down, bad dog!
Woof.
Sounds like a great name.
I really like how we get to see pretty much everyone in the cast's reaction to this new move name, and we even have this joke with Keru and Besu to kind of show Ken showing his 2 personalities of his puppets while also taking the piss out of the fact that they both end with the word launch.
Time to do some intense practice to make sure I don't forget how I pulled it off in the first place!
So I like how after all his failures with getting the rush launch correct, Volt realizes that once he learns a move, he needs to actually ingrain it into his muscle memory. So that's a cool moment for sure. So I love how they set up the inconsistency of the flash launch and the fact that the more speed the bae has, the harder it is to control. Shame that showing the flaws of new moves is something they kind of abandon in a couple of episodes.
Lousy odds. It's way too risky to use it in an actual match.
I mean, while I agree with Daigo that obviously if the odds are really bad, you shouldn't just use the move, but to be fair, if the circumstances 100% call for the move, then it would still make sense to use it, even if it's risky.
Here, catch. Cool, thanks, appreciate it.
This is good for showing Wakia and Hoji's friendship, and also this moment is very important considering it can potentially cast doubt in the idea that Wakia is trying to have Hoji throw the match, which is good considering that Hoji ends up misinterpreting this.
Don't worry about beating that Vault, or whatever his name is.
This is a cool line both for setting up a potential misinterpretation, but also showing how much what disdain Wakia has for Volt at this point, in the fact that not only is he insulting him, but he has a strong desire to beat Volt in the tournament, despite the fact that he believes Hoji will beat him anyway.
Let it rip!
This is also a great moment for both showing Hoji's distress while also showing a lot of the techniques he uses with his bae that he demonstrates against Daigo to show that they're practiced and not simply something he can do on instinct.
But why? I don't get it. Horror suit. What should I do?
Also a great way to show Hoji's bond with his bae, something that you wouldn't expect for such a minor character, but it's cool that they build on that pretty well in this season without having as many bae talks as they have in the later seasons.
Your promises mean nothing to me.
This is a great line of smack talk to kind of set up how long they've realistically been practicing this, since the fact that he says, your promises mean nothing to me, imply Volt's probably said this a few times at this point, so it implies he's been failing against Rantaro quite substantially. Also, this is a great way of actually showing us the practical applications of the flash launch that Shu showed us in the diagram before, considering he uses this application against Wakia in their battle in the semi-finals. So good to show it on someone else here.
Hey, I came here to ask you for a battle. What do you say? We doing this?
Like how, despite him not having any real evil intentions with this battle, the fact that he's desperate to get it over before the actual match kind of makes him more aggressive than how Daigo was, where he was a lot more casual with it.
You got another thing coming to you if you think we're that naive. We all know what you're trying to do. Special exception made for Vault, of course.
As I expressed in episode 5, I really hate how Vault never suspects people who try and have a practice match with him after what happened with Daigo. Like, he doesn't suspect Hoji, he doesn't suspect Wakia. Like, why can they not just let him learn that he needs to stop accepting every match from people?
Hold it! Come back here!
Okay, this is a really good gag about Rantaro and Daigo both wanting to have this battle. Again, it shows how both of them are still motivated to get stronger after their loss to Vault, while also showing their relationship with each other in the fact that they're both trying to compete here.
Exactly, which is the same as Valtryek.
I'm really glad that they let Vault work this out, because considering how much of an idiot they framed him to be before, it would have been pretty bad, but here at least, he understands Beyblade as a game, which makes the fact that he still can't internalize the concept of blading psychology a little bit easier to swallow.
So that's a long winder?
Being said, this line is illogical as fuck, so let's just go through the number of bladers who've used a long winder that he should have seen. Both his siblings are shown to use a long winder. Daigo's first opponent used one. Both of Shu's opponents used the long winder. The guy battling Wakia used the long winder. There's been plenty of long winders in this season so far, so the idea that Vault hasn't seen one is pretty absurd.
You aren't even thinking about picking up pointers. Classic Vault. No matter. I'm gonna win this battle for me.
This is a great moment for Daigo, both showing how much he's grown to like Vault in these past few episodes, while also showing his motivation that we saw in episode 5, to show that it never really left him just because he's become part of Vault's support team now.
Doomsizer! Tear him apart with your scythe!
Crush it with your scythe. Come on, that's just a piss take. Like, this is the perfect moment to show off Quake Launch, and then the show doesn't have him use it. Like, were they so against the idea of Vault's friends having moves, except for Shu, you know? It just makes them seem so much lamer as bladers, because all they do is just shout commands. It's a fantastic way of showing the power of Horisude Field, though. It is a really nice moment. Especially since they are actually going to go head-to-head in the next match, so it's good to set up this. And also set up the difference between Hoji's power grip and his control grip, the grip he uses in his battle against Vault.
Pretty good, gotta say.
Also nice how we get to see some humility from Daigo, something that he didn't show as much in episode 5 to show his development as a character since he joined Vault's friend group.
You and I have a battle! You hear that, Wakia? So do us both a favor and stop ordering him to throw the match!
I love that this sets up Vault's desire for honest wins, because again, that's something that's going to play pretty hard into the finale, so it's good to get all this setup done here to make that really work.
Seriously? You think I'd say that? You both assumed the worst.
Also, on the fact that they misinterpreted Wakia saying that Hoji would throw the match, his line specifically is, "Don't worry about beating Vault." So you can internalize that as both him saying to Hoji, which is what he meant, "Hey man, don't be too stressed about it, because even if you lose, I'm still going to beat up this guy." Or you can internalize it as, "Don't worry about it," as in, don't win, just lose, because I'm going to win anyway. And that second sentence of that line makes that line more logical, but the line itself makes the first conclusion more logical. So you can see where they could have misinterpreted it while understanding that they got it wrong.
Don't get me wrong, I always win. But as ridiculous as this sounds, you're practically my brother.
So again, fantastic moment for both setting up their brotherly-like relationship as well as his care for Hoji, something that plays into their battle in the regional tournament, which is a while away, but it's still a good dynamic to set up.
Know this, I'm gonna have to beat you in this next match, Vault.
Not if I can help it, Hoji!
Also a great moment to show Hoji and Vault's competitiveness, despite how on each other's side they've pretty much been throughout this episode, because it sets up their match pretty well.
I'm training, buzz off, brat!
So am I! Now move over!
Also nice to set up a rivalry between Wakia and Vault here, and also setting up the gag of people running side by side while having a race, since that's a gag they pretty much keep throughout the show.
Nope, I think it does actually.
Huh? Why?
Think about it. All the power you get when you launch your bay is from, I think it's called core strength.
Nika, you know that cardio doesn't build core strength, right? Like, I know that they're trying to point out why running would matter, but you think running would help with endurance or just being able to plant your feet better, but I don't really think running builds your core strength. Something like a sit-up or a crunch would build that far better.
I gotta practice somewhere, Mom!
While I love this joke, I mean, he could run in the yard, could he not? That would be a fine compromise. Overall, as a comedic episode, this one is fantastic, featuring a lot of my favorite jokes. And then as a story episode, it does Waki and Hoji really well. Has some good moments with Volt and Rantaro and Volt and Daigo. Ken has some stuff, Shu's got some stuff. I will say there are a lot of just pretty illogical lines and a few of the show's rare continuity errors. So I don't think this is the show's best episode, but it's not bad. See you for episode 8.